technological advancements and crazy tech and all that stuff doesn't matter if a car breaks every 30 miles. It doesn't matter how innovative someone is if the car is that unreliable.
They call it the most exclusive car brand on the planet. 40 cars a year, hand-built, multi-million-dollar masterpieces that make Ferraris look like rentals. Koenigsegg has always been untouchable until now, because the fires, the breakdowns, the billionaire feuds, and the 5-year delivery nightmares, they've all collided at once. And the car YouTube community? They are no longer staying quiet. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the crisis nobody at Koenigsegg wanted you to see. The day a $4 million car became a pile of ash. It was June 15, 2024, a blazing Saturday morning on the sun-drenched roads just outside Athens, Greece. 70+ of the world's most exotic supercars had gathered for the 6-to-6 Europe tour, a rolling spectacle of obscene wealth traveling from Athens all the way to Monaco. Among them sat one of the rarest things on 4 wheels, a Koenigsegg Jesco Near Edition, draped in the brand's signature naked carbon, an exposed carbon fiber option so painstaking to produce that it alone adds $443,000 to the already astronomical price tag. Then there were the 24-karat gold accents. All told, a car worth north of $4 million. The owner, a Spanish collector, had taken delivery barely a few weeks before. The odometer? Just over 100 miles. Minutes after leaving the hotel, the Jesco simply caught fire. Not a small fire you smother with your jacket. A total, catastrophic inferno. By the time firefighters arrived and extinguished the blaze, the only identifiable parts of this multi-million-dollar hypercar were its wheels. Everything else, the carbon fiber, the gold details, the 1,600 horsepower twin-turbo V8, was ash. Complete, humiliating, expensive ash. Nobody was hurt. That is the one mercy in this horror story. But the footage spread across social media within minutes. Within the hour, the story was on Greek automotive news. Within days, the entire hypercar world was talking. Koenigsegg moved fast. They issued a do-not-drive order to all 28 Jesco owners on the planet. Yes, only 28 had been delivered at that point, and admitted openly they didn't yet know what caused the fire. The burned wreck was shipped back to the factory in Ängelholm, Sweden for investigation. The cause was eventually identified: a faulty hydraulic hose. Software updates were issued. The drive ban was eventually lifted. But you don't forget footage of a $4 million car reduced to rubble in under an hour. The internet certainly didn't. So that was one fire, one disaster that Koenigsegg managed to contain, at least publicly. But what if we told you it wasn't the only one? Because the flames were just getting started. Flames, failures, and fixing things on the fly. A few months after the Athens Inferno, a Koenigsegg Jesco Absolute, the top-of-the-range record-chasing variant, was captured on video shooting dramatic exhaust flames during a high-speed run. Koenigsegg were quick to describe it as a non-catastrophic engine issue, one that was caught early thanks to the monitoring systems and software updates installed after the Athens fire. And honestly, that explanation is likely genuine. Koenigsegg's engineers are brilliant, and their response protocols are thorough. But the optics? Absolutely terrible. When you're the brand with the Jesco fire still raw in everyone's memory, a second video of another Jesco billowing flames, however technically manageable, does not help your case. Not even slightly. What started to emerge across 2024 and into 2025 was a pattern. A brand whose engineering ambition was quietly outpacing its real-world quality control capability. The Jesco uses a 9-speed transmission so radical that Koenigsegg named it the light-speed transmission. The Regera eliminates the traditional gearbox entirely with a direct drive system that had never been done at this level before. These are not incremental tweaks. They are technological leaps into genuinely uncharted territory. And with uncharted territory come inevitably teething problems, hydraulic failures, hybrid system breakdowns, software patches issued mid-production. The problem is that at $3 million, $4 million, or even $1.7 million per car, buyers are not signing up for a beta test. They're buying what they expect is the finished, perfected article. And the gap between those two realities, Koenigsegg's engineering frontier and the customer's expectation of a flawless product, was about to explode into the most spectacular public feud the hypercar world had ever seen. But before we get into the drama that went fully viral, and trust us, it makes a Marvel movie look subtle, let's go back to the very beginning. Because to understand why this scandal cuts so deep, you need to understand the man who built this empire. The boy who built a hypercar empire from nothing. Christian von Koenigsegg wasn't supposed to disrupt the hypercar world, at least not on paper. Born in July 1972 in Stockholm, Sweden, into a well-off family with a businessman father, his path could have easily followed boardrooms and balance sheets. But from an almost ridiculous age, his obsession wasn't money, it was machines, not just driving them, building them. The story that's basically become Koenigsegg folklore. At 5 years old, he watched the Norwegian animated film Flåklypa Grand Prix, a quirky tale about a small-time mechanic who builds a race car and defeats a corrupt giant. For most kids, it was just a movie. For Christian, it was a blueprint. Fast forward to 1994, and at just 22 years old, he actually went for it, founding Koenigsegg Automotive AB in a tiny workshop with no safety net, no legacy brand, and definitely no billion-dollar cushion. At a time when the hypercar scene was dominated by titans like Ferrari, Lamborghini, and the newly revived Bugatti, this wasn't just ambitious, it bordered on delusional. And yet, by 1996, the first prototype, the CC, was already taking shape. By 2002, the Koenigsegg CC8S hit production. Only 6 cars, sure, but enough to make the industry pause and go, wait, who are these guys? Then came the records. The CCR smashing speed records in 2005. The Koenigsegg Agera RS hitting 277.9 miles per hour in 2017. And the Koenigsegg Jesco Absolute teasing a theoretical 300-plus miles per hour future. But more than speed, Christian built something else entirely. A myth. A brand where every car is hand-built, every detail obsessed over, and where the CEO himself might argue with you in the comments. That level of personal investment? It's rare, almost unheard of. Which is exactly why, when things started going wrong, it didn't feel like a minor hiccup. It felt personal. Because when a myth meets reality, it doesn't just crack, it explodes. So what happens when one of Koenigsegg's own billionaire clients decides to stop whispering and starts broadcasting his frustration to the world? Thanos von Koenigsegg, deliver my car. By late 2025, the name dominating every hypercar conversation wasn't Christian von Koenigsegg. It was Steve Hamilton. If Steve Hamilton is new to you, here's the shortcut. Self-made billionaire from Wisconsin, runs a YouTube channel called The Hamilton Collection with a following that other car channels dream of, and owns a fleet so staggering it includes Bugattis, Paganis, Lamborghinis, and crucially, multiple Koenigseggs. He and Christian von Koenigsegg had shared a personal, cordial relationship. Hamilton had visited the factory. He'd spec'd his own Jesco on site like an excited kid choosing toppings. This was not a hostile stranger. This was one of Koenigsegg's most prominent, most loyal, most publicly enthusiastic customers. Then, in November 2025, Hamilton went fully, gloriously nuclear on Instagram. He posted a photoshopped image of Christian von Koenigsegg as Marvel villain Thanos. Purple face, gold armor, the works, with a caption that read, "I will no longer be silenced by Thanos von Koenigsegg. Deliver my car." He then added, "The amount of Koenigsegg owners that DM us with grievances, issues, etc. would blow your mind." The internet, predictably, completely lost its mind. Hamilton's list of grievances was extensive and damning. His Jesco, spec'd personally at the factory, had been delayed for over 2 years. His Gemera order, placed when the car debuted in 2020, was now approaching 5 years in limbo despite a $1.7 million deposit. And his used 2019 Regera? That, he claimed, had spent 90% of its life in a service center, including the previous 2 months straight. Hamilton claimed the car had broken down after just 4 miles at a public debut thanks to a catastrophic high-voltage powertrain failure. Christian von Koenigsegg did not ignore this. He posted his own detailed video response on his personal Instagram, showing footage of what he said was Hamilton's nearly completed Jesco, awaiting final quality checks. He laid out the timeline. The second payment hadn't arrived until early 2025. The final specification wasn't locked until May. The Regera had been purchased second-hand from a dealer with 3 years of undocumented service history. His company had even flown a technician to Hamilton's location to fix the Regera at zero cost as a goodwill gesture, given the outstanding Jesco and Gemera orders. Then came the kicker. Von Koenigsegg ended his video standing beside the orange Jesco, saying with barely concealed exasperation, "Yeah, what am I supposed to do now? It's an interesting situation, and it's not finally paid for, so, The crowd went wild. Sides were taken. Fan accounts erupted. Hamilton's response was equally devastating in its directness. "I genuinely think that people at Koenigsegg are good people and they care about their customers, but at the end of the day, they just don't build a good quality car. There are tons of Regera owners and Agera owners, people that you know and recognize the name of, that just hate the quality of this car. From a man who owns one. From a man who's still ordering more of them." But the Instagram battle was almost civilized compared to what happened at Christmas, when 2 Koenigseggs made their big public debut together, and within hours, both were dead on the side of the road. Christmas morning, a pizza shop, and a $5 million nightmare. It was supposed to be the ultimate Christmas flex. Steve Hamilton had arranged for 2 of his Koenigseggs, a brand new Jesco and his freshly turquoise-wrapped Regera, to make their joint public debut at a fan meetup at Strad Pizza in Wisconsin. Hundreds of enthusiasts turned up. The cameras were rolling. This was going to be the content moment of the year. The Regera went first. It died just 4 miles from the meetup. A high-voltage powertrain failure, rendering the 1,500 horsepower, $1.9 million hypercar completely undrivable at the worst possible moment. The Jesco lasted a little longer, 80 miles. Then a hydraulic fluid leak lit up the dashboard. The brake system was compromised. The car is essentially done for the day. 2 Koenigseggs. 2 catastrophic breakdowns. 1 Christmas. In public. On camera. For millions of subscribers. You genuinely could not write a worse PR scenario. The comments section practically wrote itself. Every skeptic who'd ever questioned the brand had a clip to share. Every fan had to watch the cars they'd been defending melt down in real time, in front of a parking lot full of witnesses. Now, and fairness matters here, The Regera was a used car with a complicated service history, and the Jesco's hydraulic issue may well have been a relatively minor fault in engineering terms. But that is not how the internet processes footage. The internet sees a $3 million hypercar dying at 80 miles and a $1.9 million flagship failing in 4. And the internet is not interested in nuance. Not that day. Hamilton's breakdown was dramatic and brutal. But behind his story sat a quieter, longer scandal, one that hundreds of buyers had been silently enduring for years. Checks written and patience worn to threads. Welcome to the Gemera waiting room. The Gemera. 5 years, still waiting. The Koenigsegg. Gemera was unveiled in 2020 with a fanfare that shook the industry. A 4-seat hypercar from Koenigsegg with a 3-cylinder engine paired with 3 electric motors, churning out a genuinely insane 1,700 combined horsepower. Starting price? $1.7 million. Units available. A limited run. All spoken for almost immediately. It was, by every measure, a smashing debut. Then the delays started, and didn't stop. First, the original drivetrain plan was reconsidered, then redesigned again. What had been floated as a 2022 delivery for early customers became 2023, then 2024, and then, for buyers like Steve Hamilton, 2025, with no firm end in sight. By November 2025, Hamilton's deposit had been sitting with Koenigsegg for over 5 years since the car's debut. 5 years for a $1.7 million car. Think about that timeline in human terms. You place your deposit. You're excited, genuinely, ecstatically excited about the most groundbreaking 4-seater ever conceived. Year 1, you're patient. Year 2, you start checking in. Year 3, you're getting mildly anxious. Year 4, you start wondering if the car actually exists. Year 5, you're posting memes comparing the CEO to a Marvel supervillain. To be fair to Koenigsegg, and they do deserve some fairness, redesigning a drivetrain for a car as technically complex as the Gemera is not a trivial task. And deliveries did eventually begin for some customers. But the accumulated experience of those early depositors who handed over 7-figure sums and waited half a decade laid bare a fundamental tension inside the Koenigsegg model. The gap between what they promise at a reveal and what they can actually deliver in a factory that produces 40 cars a year. And that gap between vision and execution, between promise and reality, is the one thread that ties every single story in this video together. So what does it all actually mean for the brand? And is this a bump in the road, or something far more serious? The real problem: ambition versus accountability. Here is the uncomfortable truth about Koenigsegg that no press release will ever fully say out loud. They build 40 to 50 cars per year. 40 to 50. In a world where Porsche builds nearly 300,000. And yet, those 40 to 50 cars contain technology so genuinely advanced that no one else on Earth is attempting it at production scale. A direct drive hybrid system with no gearbox, a 9-clutch transmission that operates in nanoseconds. Active aerodynamics generating over 3,000 pounds of downforce. These are not slight improvements on what came before. They are engineering leaps into genuinely uncharted territory. That ambition is breathtaking. It is also, as the past 2 years have made painfully clear, a structural vulnerability that no amount of passion and brilliance can fully protect against. When you produce 40 cars a year, your quality control network is tiny. Your global service infrastructure, however skilled and dedicated, is necessarily thin. When a Jesco catches fire in Athens, The burned wreck physically has to be shipped back to Sweden. When a Regera fails in Wisconsin, the options are genuinely limited. And when the CEO himself has to send a technician across the world to fix a single customer's car at personal expense as a goodwill gesture? That tells you everything you need to know about the scale mismatch between this brand's ambitions and its operational support capacity. Christian von Koenigsegg has never actually pretended these cars are flawless. In the thick of the Hamilton drama, he said something quietly significant. These extreme cars usually tend to have some issues, especially in the beginning of a series, but we always upgrade and take care of it. That's honest. That's even, in its own way, admirable. But it is also a quiet acknowledgement of the contract buyers are unknowingly entering into, one that no $3 million price tag openly advertises. And then there's social media, the factor that has changed everything about how brands like Koenigsegg are held to account. A decade ago, a Regera spending months in a service center was a private matter, handled discreetly between a wealthy owner and a boutique dealership, never leaving that ecosystem. Today, that same owner has millions of Instagram followers and a YouTube channel with a bigger audience than most television networks. They post. The internet reacts. And what was once a quiet after-sales headache becomes a global news cycle overnight. Car YouTubers, once content to film glorious launch control runs and reverential factory tours, are now a meaningful part of the accountability infrastructure for brands like this. Channels like the Hamilton Collection don't just celebrate these machines. They document, in real time, what it's actually like to own one. And increasingly, what it's like to own a Koenigsegg is complicated, expensive, occasionally spectacular, and far more often than the marketing suggests, unexpectedly fragile. The brand is not finished, not even close. The Jesco remains one of the most jaw-dropping machines ever to turn a wheel. The Gemera, whatever its delays, will eventually reach its owners and likely redefine what a four-seat hypercar means. Christian von Koenigsegg will keep pushing limits that no other manufacturer would dare approach. But the era of the unblemished mythology, the pristine, untouchable image of the scrappy Swedish underdog that could do absolutely no wrong, that era ended on a Greek roadside in June 2024, when a $4 million car went up in flames with barely 100 miles on the clock. The question now is not whether Koenigsegg can build extraordinary machines. The evidence is overwhelming. They absolutely can. The question is whether they can build an extraordinary company around those machines. One that pairs its engineering genius with the accountability, reliability, and after-sales depth that buyers spending millions genuinely deserve. The world is watching. The YouTubers are talking. And this time, there is nowhere to hide. And that right there, fires, feuds, 5-year waits, and a billionaire calling the CEO an actual supervillain, is the full, unfiltered story of the cracks forming in Koenigsegg's immaculate reputation. But here's the thing. This is far from over. Deliveries are still pending, owners are still talking, and the next chapter is already being written in real time. Drop your verdict in the comments. Are you Team Hamilton or Team von Koenigsegg? Subscribe, hit that bell, and come back for the next video. Because the bombshell we're dropping next, trust us, you will not want to miss it.